And welcome to the August edition of the Zooming TMUG user group. Welcome to sustaining members, new members, first-time guests. Is there anybody here who's here for the first time? No, Mark, you're not. I know, I've recognized you. Michael, I've seen you before. Jerry from Monterey, California, welcome. Okay, let's get started. We have started a new raffle to take place during our Zoom meetings. And what will happen is I will take down the names of everybody here, and I will put them into a numbered list after the show here, and ask Siri to pick a number from 1 to however many people we have, and Siri will select the winner. If that winner is a TMUG member in good standing, then they will get a Apple, let's see, it's a App Store and iTunes gift card, which is my understanding will also work at Apple stores if they are not reclosed. And we will confirm that via email, and we'll mail it out to you and you'll get it. We're also doing the super raffle as well. Kurt will be taking down the names of the people here, and if they are TMUG members in good standing, he will fill out a little slip for each of you and put it in the big drum, which will be a sealed mayonnaise jar on Funkin' Wagnall's porch until March of next year. Next meeting is on Tuesday, September 15th at this virtual location. This month we had a combined early session hosted by Kevin. Wish to thank Kevin for all of his efforts, and it went pretty smoothly. I was there for most of it, and I think that it was very helpful. Thank you, Kevin. We hope that maybe we can get you to do it again. Kurt's on somebody else's phone call, but it looks like he's coming back to us now.
Bob, can you hear me?
I'm back.
Good.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you, Kevin.
Okay. I already set up for next month if you want to do one.
Great.
So I can send you the info.
Great. We'd like you to do that. Ward 6 is still closed until further notice. We'll let you know when we know more, and maybe we can get back to a person-to-person meeting sometime in the future. Does everybody have their chat window open? Anybody here not know how to open their chat window? Jerry?
I don't.
Open at the bottom of the window for Zoom, you'll have a bunch of little icons. One of them says chat. Click on that and you will open the chat window. That will become, this is a way for you to send private messages to somebody else or a message to everybody. Also, it will become important when we talk about the survey, the speaker survey that we're going to be doing, and Bob Doms will be leading us through that.
Is it green?
That's the one that says share screen. It's just on my screen, it's just to the left of share screen. You got it?
Got it.
Great. Is there anybody here who is not signed up for the TMUG new forums hosted by groups.io? By show of hands, anybody here not signed up? Okay, of you people, are you all TMUG members? Okay, well, you should be signed up. You can sign up by going to the TMUG website and you'll find a link there to get you started, or you can send me an email directly, and I will directly send you an invitation. Not right now, probably tomorrow. But we'd like to have everybody participate in the groups.io web mail lists. And it's the replacement for the TMUG forums of old. Our new raffle, which I spoke of a little bit earlier, our virtual raffle for during our Zoom meetings, last month's winner was Kevin Bonnet, or Bonnet, or
On it.
Kevin at mac.com. Any of those things. And congratulations, Kevin. And
you.
hopefully somebody else will win this month. Melissa, do you have an announcement for everybody concerning children who are doing virtual schooling from home, distance learning?
Yes. If anybody has any over-the-ear, not these kind of buds, but over-the-ear headphones that fit over, some little kids are in need of them. There's about like maybe half or more than half of Keegan's one class that doesn't have headphones. So if anybody has any over-the-ear ones, those might be helpful. If you're moved on to the wireless and you want the earbuds and you no longer have a need for the over-the-ear, I'll take them.
And if someone would have a pair or more of those cans with a cord
yeah.
on them, how would they get them to you?
I would say just email me and we can work something out probably. Meet
And
up
what is
somewhere.
your email address, Melissa?
Gee, can you guess? It's melissa@themacmommy.com.
Okay. You can also contact Melissa through the, if you forget.
Twitters.
Well, yeah, Twitter and all those things, or even the TMUG mail lists.
Yes, that would be great.
What
That'd probably be the
connector?
easiest way.
What connector do these headphones need? Do they
1/8
need
inch.
the 1/4 inch like from the old days of guitar
Oh, no,
amplifiers,
those are,
or the 3.5
the
millimeter?
3.5. Yeah.
Also known as 1/8 of an inch.
Aha. There you go.
Okay. Moving forward.
Thank you.
Do we have any for sales or wanted to buys? All right. Then we're going to move on to our the main portions of our meeting, starting with Ridge. He's going to give us the tech update and security notes for the month. Take it away, Ridge.
And I will need the ability to share the screen.
Okay, so before we do that, just a reminder that when we share the screen, I cannot see people in the waiting room. So if you come late and you're during one of these sharing the screen presentations, I'm not ignoring you. I am just sharing the screen and making Ridge the host.
And it says you are the host now, so I will go ahead.
Just a point of information, you can close that Zoom window in Safari, everybody. Once you get into a meeting, you don't need to have it open. It won't hurt anything.
Okay, here we go. For August, our tech update. Of course, we begin with software updates, and if you would like software that can replace the Adobe stuff, Affinity is a really good choice. Their publisher, photo, and designer apps are not very expensive, and when you pay for them, they're very inexpensive, and you can get updates for them without having to pay a subscription fee like Adobe requires. But in the meanwhile, the Adobe updated Bridge, Photoshop, Prelude, Acrobat Reader, and Lightroom. And one thing that's very important for us is Carbon Copy Cloner got updated, and it's now okay for the people who are running Catalina. And Chromium got updated. It's good for Yosemite and higher. And if you're using AtraCheck as a utility, AtraCheck Pro has been updated. And iMazing, which Melissa showed us a while back, that's been updated, and it works for Mojave or better, or iTunes 12.2 and iOS 4. And Firefox 79 is good for Sierra. And the iOS version was also updated, and Google updated Chrome for iOS and the Mac OS. And LibreOffice, which we talked about in the advanced Ask the Experts section, that's been updated to 7.0, and it'll run in Sierra or higher. And there's also versions of it that'll run in much earlier Mac OSs. And Microsoft did their updates to Office 2016, 2019, and 365. And NeoOffice, which is a version of LibreOffice, that got updated as well. And Thunderbird 78 for email folks that use it. And VLC Media Player, which we talked about in the Ask the Experts session, was also updated. And Apple released iOS and iPad OS updates. And GarageBand was updated for both the iOS and the Mac OS. And there was a 5th supplemental update to Mac OS 10.15 Catalina. And tvOS was updated as well, along with watchOS. And coming from Apple is Mac OS 10, or whatever you want to call it, Big Sur, that's coming. And iOS 14 and iPad OS 14, tvOS and watchOS and Xcode are all coming. They're in beta. And on August 4th, Apple announced an upgrade to their iMac line. And Tony Ewing's going to tell us exactly what Apple upgraded. But a teaser is if you want to max out the 27-inch model, you can spend over $8,900. And their third quarter financials results were published. And as you can see, everything is up year over year from last time. And they declared a dividend, and they approved a 4-for-1 stock split. Apple has decided to become carbon neutral across their entire business by 2030. And that includes the people who supply them and all of their product life cycles. So Tim Cook made it official by saying Apple's entire business will be carbon neutral by 2030. And it includes everything. And on July 31st, Apple announced a major change to the gift card offerings that they have. And so instead of separate cards for iTunes and Apple Store purchases, Apple's now selling a single card for everything that Apple. It can be used online and in stores to purchase everything. But now that the two Apple Stores cards are merged into one, does that mean the end of card discounts? Who knows? We'll have to wait and see on that one. Apple had some personnel changes that were interesting to me anyway. Phil Schiller, who's been at Apple for 33 years, he leaves worldwide marketing for a role as an Apple Fellow, but he's going to continue to lead the App Store and Apple events. other Apple fellows that have been honored in the past were Bill Atkinson, who did a lot of the programming in the early Mac operating system, and Guy Kawasaki, who was an early Mac
Evangelist.
missionary, I guess you want to call him.
Evangelist.
Evangelist, that's it. That's the word I was looking for. And Steve Wozniak. And that status is granted for extraordinary contributions. And the people who get it get additional stock options as a reward. And then Greg Joswiak, who's been at Apple over 20 years, he becomes now the Senior Vice President of Worldwide Marketing. And now Other World Computing has come to help us out with the Mac Pro expensive wheel kit that costs about $700. And they've come out with a kit they call Rover Pro, and it's only $200, and it's going to ship next month. And it installs under 2 minutes, they say. And these are some pictures of what it looks like. And this is a close-up. And of course, they even have a set of rubber chocks to keep the Mac from rolling all over the place. And Apple removed the ability to boot from an external RAID drive in Mojave, and that affects both Apple RAID and soft RAID users. And the Apple Watch 1 and 2 series are being left behind by Watch OS 7. And if you're updating to iOS 13.6, the device that you update is set to auto update, even if you have that option turned off. So be sure to check the auto update setting after your update to 13.6. And Apple and Health have been busy, mostly with the watch, that Apple has these health functions in it. And this Norwegian tech reporter fell down in his bathroom at 4 a.m. and he was unconscious, and then he woke up in bed with 3 cops standing above him who were notified by his Apple Watch's fall detection system. And when they looked at him, he had 3 fractures in his face and his chin bone was pressed in. And then a Maryland woman in her car, she had a baby in the car. Well, she stopped at a busy intersection and hit on the left side by a drunk driver going 62 miles an hour. Well, the baby started screaming and there was a smell of leaking gas and she was not able to see. So using her Apple Watch, she hit the digital crown and said, "Siri, call 911. EMTs and the fire department arrived within a minute, and she, the baby, were safely extracted. And then there was a 27-year-old Kansas woman who was alerted by her Apple Watch that her heart rate was above 120 beats per minute and was rising throughout the night. So she visited her urgent care clinic and was diagnosed with hyperthyroidism. And then there was a 45-year-old Florida man whose watch alerted him while he was at work he was in atrial fibrillation. And later that day, at the urging of his fellow workers, he went to an emergency room where they said he was close to cardiac arrest. And then a little bit later on, he waited for 4 days when finally given medication that eventually countered the AFib. Then there was a 32-year-old New York City 300-pound man who was really happy that he could use his Apple Watch's fitness features to help him lose 100 pounds. That helped reduce his snoring, joint pains, backaches, and headaches. And as far as Apple and COVID-19 goes, Apple is now saying their staff is not going to be returning to its US offices until early next year, saying the final date still depends upon the coronavirus situation and that office staff will continue to work from home for at least the rest of this year. And Microsoft wants you to know that all users of their Office 2016 for Mac applications will cease getting security updates as of October 13th this year. And that means that Mac users of the Office 2016 will no longer be officially supported. And the business versions of OneDrive, SharePoint, and Exchange Online will not be supported. And as far as Catalina goes, there was a memory leak in the 10.15.6 release, and that induced kernel panics and crashes. The latest supplemental update has fixed it. Then there was an online report that Photoshop 2020 no longer works reliability when Catalina is the Mac OS version. And there's another report that version of Photoshop, version 21.2.1 and Catalina 10.15.6 on a 2014 iMac 5K worked okay. Then there's, in Catalina, there's a new not charging battery status feature of the Mac operating system, Catalina's battery health management tools. So if you see it, don't panic, because your battery will consume charging to 100% when it's appropriate for it to do so. The rumors that have been going around the internet are that maybe Face ID is going to be available to Macs with Big Sur. And they're asking if the next Apple Watch Series 6 is going to include the ability to monitor your blood oxygen. And then are Apple services being bundled into packages called Apple One? And apparently that is occurring right now. And how about a future Apple Watch having an antenna array built into the display face? Well, most of these we're going to have to wait and see. And back on June 22nd, Tim Cook said Macs with Apple Silicon are due later this year, and Macs with the Intel chips will still be supported. He said that Rosetta 2 will allow the Intel-based apps to run on Apple Silicon. And he said they expect the Silicon transition to take about 2 years, and said they plan to continue to support and release new versions of the Mac OS for Intel-based Macs for years to come. And in fact, he continued, we have some new Intel-based Macs in the pipeline we're really excited about. But so far as Apple Silicon goes, target disk mode seems to be eliminated, and something called SMB disk mode may replace it, which will probably make recovery from an external disk become complex or not possible. But there's a hidden system recovery partition included if you need to reinstall the operating system on an Apple Silicon Mac if it's needed. But if it's hidden, how are we going to be able to find it? And Thunderbolt is missing on the developer ARM kits that Apple gave the developers in the Mac Minis. But an Apple spokesperson recently said, we remain committed to the future of Thunderbolt and will support it in Macs with Apple Silicon. How about some notes about Big Sur? The compatible Macs list is on the left-hand side of the screen. And the not compatible ones are on the right side of the screen. Basically, early 2013 and 2012 and earlier. And here's some things that we need to keep in mind if we want to think about trying out the Big Sur beta release, remembering that only 64-bit apps are supported and that older media formats are not supported, and that Back to My Mac is not supported, and Apple's RAID utility is removed, and Safari 13 extensions are not supported, and the system volume architecture requires all the backup and cloning applications to be revised. There's no dashboard feature, and you cannot install onto or boot from FireWire storage. Time machine backup can now be done directly to an APFS formatted drive. You don't have to have the time machine backup formatted in HFS Plus. Well, that's a positive. And folks trying to install the public beta of Big Sur report all kinds of system crashes and issues, such as trying to install over a previous Mac operating system and migrating items from a previous operating system. And they all report that installing on a completely clean drive seems to be okay. But now, if you want to reveal any notifications that you maybe have coming in, you have to click on the menu bar clock. Wow. And there's a lot of online complaints that Apple has changed its user interface so much that it's become arcane, complex, hidden, and unfathomable. And Jason Smell, who was a former chief editor of Macworld, said the major design overhaul in I have to apologize for that phone call. And of course, it's not something we want to answer here. Anyway, and so Jason Snell thinks that maybe Big Sur is clearly inspired by the iPad operating system. He mentions that the icons now look exactly like those on iPad screens. And he thinks maybe Apple is getting ready to make it more conducive to a touch interface in advance of introducing touch screens to the Mac for the first time, but we'll have to see about that. And of course, here's our sponsors, our cloth logos, and now we have pins. And when we get back into face-to-face meetings, all these items will be available for sale. And one other nice thing about it is if you wear this on a piece of clothing to a meeting, you'll get a free general raffle ticket. Thanks so far for your attention, but now we're going to go to the items of security interest for this month. And Adobe, of course, patched Bridge, Photoshop, Acrobat, Reader, Lightroom, and Prelude for security reasons. And Google updated the iOS version of Chrome and the Mac OS version of Chrome. And Mozilla has updated Firefox for Mac and Firefox for Chrome and their Thunderbird email program. They've all been updated. And of course, Apple was busy with security patches in iOS and iPad OS and GarageBand for both the Mac and iOS. And then their fifth supplemental update to the Mac OS Catalina can be considered to have some software fixes for security, and tvOS and watchOS as well. And the other software that got security fixes, Microsoft Office did it for 2016 and 365. And Chromium got updated as well. Now, as far as malvertising goes, there's now 4 Trojanized cryptocurrency trading apps. So if you're involved with cryptocurrency, you might want to pay attention. And they have been found spreading malware that drains your cryptocurrency wallet and collects your using browsing data. And they turn out to be Trojanized cryptocurrency trading applications. And once they're downloaded, they actually drain the victim's cryptocurrency wallets. And there's 4 fake applications in question: CoinTracer, CoupaTrade, LikeATrade, and Trezorus. And they claim to be rebranded copies of an actual cryptocurrency trading application offering called Katana. And the actors behind this campaign, they used websites that copy Katana as a legitimate website to convince unwitting enthusiasts to download the fake apps. The bogus websites include a download button with a link to a zip archive containing the Trojanized application bundle. And for a person who doesn't know Katana, the websites do look legitimate. The malware authors wrapped copies of the original legitimate application to include malware in it, and they also rebranded the Katana trading application with new names and copied its original website. But once downloaded, these apps deploy a malware called Gmail to collect the victim's browser information and access and drain their cryptocurrency wallets and take screenshots of their devices. It's a probably good idea to stay away from cryptocurrency software for now. But on the good software side of the house, MicroSnitch is designed to operate in the background to monitor and report any microphone and camera activity to help you figure out if someone's spying on you. And it includes an on-screen overlay while the microphone or camera is on, plus notifications and logging of all microphone and camera activity. It's only priced at $4, and it's good for El Capitan and up, and functions in demo mode prior to purchase. Radio Silence is another good piece of software, a Mac firewall app from so-and-so that's designed for simplicity. It includes a network monitor where a single click can block an application, including hidden and child processes from making outgoing connections. So it stops the outgoing connections, and the Radio Silence firewall lets you make a list of applications that are not allowed to access the internet. The network monitor lets you see all the connections made by applications and processes in real time. And Radio Silence prevents applications from phoning home, which is different from the Mac OS built-in firewall, which only prevents incoming traffic. And it's only priced at $9. And there are versions for Snow Leopard and up with a 24-hour trial. And it can be used, once you buy it, it can be used on every Mac you own. So thanks for your attention, and stay safe. And thank you for paying all attention to me. And I'm happy to do this every month. And now back to you guys.
Thanks, Ridge.
Thank you, Ridge.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate all the work. And we're back.
Okay.
And Roger needs to take the host back because he's going to have to give it over to Tony in a minute. So I'm going to take this moment to ask by a show of hands who is not signed up for the TMUG groups.io mail lists. Anybody here? Good. If you're not signed up, please let me know and I will send you individual invitations to join the groups.io. One note, Ridge talked a lot about problems with Big Sur. Remember, Big Sur is a beta, and do not install beta software on a machine that you count on for like anything. We leave that up to people like Kevin and Tony to do on other machines and let them take the slings and arrows for everybody else. So now we're over to Tony, and he's ready for the introduction of the 27-inch iMac. Go ahead, Tony.
Okay, hopefully everyone can hear me.
I can.
Okay, so Apple announced an update for the 27-inch 5K iMac. And what they did is they upgraded to the newest generation of Intel processors, which sounds like it's going to be the last generation for about 2 years. With Intel announcing the issues about a month after Apple said that they're switching to Apple Silicon, Intel announced that they were having issues with their next generation processors, and it was going to be a while before they really had a lot faster. This is really a major overhaul, not just a speed bump. Next generation graphics from AMD, build to order for the 5700 version. They're now making it so the SSD can be 8 terabytes if you want to spend that much money. They have now the T2 security chip in the 27-inch iMac, which was what was in the iMac Pro before. This means now that the desktop FaceTime camera is finally high def instead of, partially high def like it was before. And they've improved, of course, the speakers and microphone. One of the things that Apple said is the T2 chip is now able to do the signal processing for the images. And so that's what allows them to do the 1080p FaceTime in the new system. It's not using your main system processor at all. It's all being handled by the T2 chip, similar to what they've been doing in the phones for a while now. The last major update that they did is they now have the same nano texture display glass available, and I will show you the price of that later. But if you're in a situation where you have high glare, then this is the same type of display that they put on the $6,000 Pro XDR display that Apple came out with. So they also announced minor updates to the 21.5 and the iMac Pro. So essentially the 21.5 is the same computer, except it now has an SSD as the standard drive instead of a Fusion drive, which was the mixed spinning disk plus SSD. And the iMac Pro, because they updated the 27-inch iMac to be a 10-core to have 10 core, they updated the iMac Pro base model to be the 10-core processor, up from 8. So you might ask, how much is this going to cost? So here you can see the 3 different base models, and so they're now essentially the lowest RAM they have is 8 gigabytes. You can update that RAM to 16 gigabytes or 32 gigabytes for $200 or $600. Now, one advantage with this machine is the RAM is actually user accessible without like removing the display glass and taking out the motherboard. It is actually a user accessible update. So you can buy third-party RAM from like Otherworld Computing or Simutech and get that put in. You can get up to 128 gigabytes of RAM in this machine. So you'll notice at the bottom too, the nano texture glass is a $500 addition. That sounds really high to me. I'm not sure why that costs as much as it does, but I do know that there are people who will like that and will want that. So Ridge gave you a little bit higher price for the maxed out. I did not add a mouse and a trackpad, which gets you up to the $8,900. That's just with the Magic Mouse 2. So that's 128 gig of RAM, an 8 terabyte SSD, Radeon 5700 with 16 gigabytes of graphics memory, and 10 gigabit per second Ethernet. I think I've been humming along at 1 gigabit for 8 or 9 years now, and the pipe outside of my house still isn't faster than that. So I haven't really noticed that I need the 10 gigabit Ethernet. I do know there's places where that would be useful. And then, so that's the information that I have on the update. I will post these into the groups.io. Actually, I'll probably post them into the chat as soon as we're done here. And I'll post them to groups.io. I used the Tidbits article and the Apple Newsroom article for this information.
Thanks, Tony. That's good.
Thank you, Tony. And we're going to have Roger take it back because we're going to need to give it to Bob Doms, who's going to talk to us briefly about the meeting survey, the meeting feedback survey, and then go on to anatomy of a scam.
Okay, I turned my audio on. I hope that's acceptable to all.
Sounds good here.
Whoa. All right. First item is the feedback form. And I'm trying to launch that at this moment. There it is. Hopefully you can see that. Since the last meeting, we've made a couple changes to it. During the first meeting, we had 10 entries. Now we've streamlined a little bit, dropped it down to 7. And as you can see on this, by the way, I introduced the hot link already into the chat area. There's a hot link in there. You can look for that and it'll come up under your browser automatically. But each of the presentations you'll see here is already pre-labeled for you. So that's how we were able to drop down a couple of the entries that are needed. So the first 4 correspond to tonight's program. And then item number 5 is the optional. We don't always have a pre-meeting session or an early session scheduled. So that's just a short answer text. It's optional. You can enter your rating 1 through 5, 1 being the lowest, 5 being the highest. And if you would just put a brief label on that, whether it's ask me anything or ask the expert session, or if you happen to attend in the future an early session with Nemo or someone else doing a topic of the month, that's what you can use that block there. There's also an optional remarks to expand on any of the above presentations, and then finally future presentation recommendations that you have. And the staff meeting every month, we go over these in great detail, and so your inputs are always welcome on that. So I'm going to bury that for the moment and move on to part 2. This is labeled Anatomy of a Scam. I came very close to getting scammed this summer, and it didn't cost me anything. I'm going to walk you through it because it's kind of interesting how it unfolded. And I thought in the process, I'd just show you a few things that I learned by doing some research for this talk. Quick review, scam is both a noun and a verb. The verb to deceive another to obtain something, usually money, but could be property, it could be even a title or something of value other than tangible. And scams have become a real art form. They can take the form of opportunity scams, like if there's a disaster, a flood or a hurricane, you can have rogue outfits calling around asking for money to help those people out. And of course, there are certainly legitimate institutions and organizations doing these kinds of things, but there have been known to be some scams just taking advantage of opportunities like that. There's also the empathy scam art form, and might take the form of a young voice at the other end of the phone asking grandmother or grandfather for help after a car accident, needs money to get repairs and so on. It's a way of extracting money deceitfully. You could even get door-to-door people selling magazines saying that I only need 2 more subscriptions and then I can get a scholarship. So they're certainly legitimate, but there's also some deceptive characters out there. And then finally, the one that's really the technology art form. You're well familiar with the skimmers that are put on gas pumps and ATM machines. They get a lot of press these days. Those are direct technology applications. There's also e-skimmers, taking the software approach, getting into small businesses. But the one I want to focus on today is the last one that's called spear phishing. And that's where it's targeting emails. So this is kind of a play. I'm going to introduce you to the cast members first, then we'll set the scene up for you. The scammer turned, I've labeled him Dallas because after I checked where his area code came from, he was in Dallas Center, Iowa. At least that's where his cell phone was originally acquired. The intermediary in this is Jane, and I've changed her last name for privacy purposes, but she lives a couple doors down from me. And the target and myself, Bob Wannabeliever. So here's the scene. Jane and Bob both serve on the same homeowner association board of directors. Jane is in her mid-60s. She lives alone. And back in May, she fell down and hit her head. Then about a week or two later, she fell again, hitting her head against a piece of furniture. And she developed a brain aneurysm in early June, and after successful surgery and being an inpatient for about 3 weeks and monitoring in the hospital, she was discharged to return home. Due to social distancing, we're all well familiar with that now. The HOA board announced it would host its upcoming meeting via Zoom the end of June. And Jane's not familiar with the app, and she's also a PC and Gmail user, but she did ask me to help her get set up. So I took a stab at it. I went over there. I spent an hour at her home on Saturday, June 27th. And although she was having her good days and bad days, she said she was ready to give Zoom a try. That was a Saturday. On Monday, the 29th, I'm having lunch at my house, kind of skipping through my emails on my cell phone. And there's a message that shows up from Jane, and the subject is HOA. And it's directed to me. It says, "Hi, Bob. I have a task I'd like you to help me with." All right, it's signed Jane. I just saw her a couple days ago. I'm inclined to do whatever I can to help her. I'm just surprised she didn't use the word, "I have a favor to ask." But in quick retrospect, I'm career military, so the word task and task force is very common. And I realized too that she is also retired from federal service. She was with the Veterans Administration. So the word task is probably in her, right on the tip of her tongue when it comes to talking to other people about help. The second email in this sequence, about a half hour later, I answered from the time the date stamp on the original message. "Jane, what do you need?" And the third email came back a little while later. "Can you give me your phone number, please?" I'm still on my cell phone. And I said, "Okay, here it is." I gave her the actual. Now, I thought that was at first a little bit odd that she would ask for it. I thought she would have it because we have rosters for our homeowner association. But then again, I'm giving her a wide span here because of her health conditions, thinking that she's still on medications for the pain. And but it is a soft clue. It came across as initially believable and reasonable to someone under stress. Okay, now we're over on text mode because I've given her the cell phone number and she texts back, "I'm in a conference now. I need you to complete a task for me." Okay, that's odd that she would use her full last name because she was referring to me before with just her first name. And the fact that she's in a conference is a little bit soft clue number 2. But anyway, I said I got it, and we move on. Text number 3, a little more specific. "Bob, can you help me get this done as soon as possible? I need a couple gift cards. There are some listed guests here and I'm presenting the gift cards. Can you quickly arrange the gift cards because I will be giving them out in less than an hour. I'll provide you with the type and the amount, just let me know. All right, this is a hard clue. And I should have picked up on this before, but here we go. She's kind of poked through my comfort zone. So I really, really, really want to get more detail. I'm about to call her, but I decided to go over to my desktop to unmask the email, the original email. And bingo, it's not Jane. She's been hacked. The email that's hidden is hvp.qcm@icloud.com. Now you could do this possibly with your cell phone, but the small screen just makes it very difficult to press that little tiny target. So I did use the desktop to unmask her. All right, now I've decided that I realize it's a scam, but I want to see if I could take this a little bit further, being on my guard. Okay, what specifically do I need to do and where? Jane's completely out of the picture from the beginning, so we're dealing with Dallas. His text number 6 reads, the type of card I need is Google Play gift cards, $200, 3 of them. Any nearby store, when you get them, scratch out the back of the rear card codes and send me a clear picture of the card showing those codes. How soon can you get it done? Please let me know. How you want your reimbursement, either check or cash. Any food store around it will work for you. All right. So text 7. Now wait a minute, I'm stalling a little bit here. I would need more time than that because I know the deadline is 3 o'clock. I played tennis most of the morning. I'm exhausted. Moreover, I need to get cleaned up before I go out in public. Isn't there a way you can buy them online somewhere? Well, text number 8, she comes back and, or he or she, whoever's on the other end of the texting, online doesn't deliver quick. I need to present them in 45 minutes. What food store is nearest you? Well, if you haven't been convinced by now, being a neighbor, you know where all the food stores and the label of them. So we're done here. I stopped for the most part. There's a slight delay. They check hello. There must be a better way. I can't do this right now, sorry. And that's the end of my part. And then they come back one more final time. Okay, do you use Cash App or PayPal? Can you help send them money to someone that can help me get it done? I'll reimburse you back tomorrow. Okay, so that's the end of our transmissions. I repeated them pretty much verbatim, but here's my observations. Spear phishing, the act of sending targeted emails, and smishing, the text messaging, they've become a lot more sophisticated. And according to a former chief of the FBI Computer Forensic Unit, they may call you by name, use your title, or even mention a project or an organization that you're both either associated with or working on. Any purported problem invites empathy. Getting the clock adds element of urgency, and you could see that through the individual trying to ask for them within a certain amount of time. And the texting helps the hacker because you're using a much smaller screen. You're most likely away from a printer and away from making a visibility of some of the paper trail that you've already done in correspondence. And the cell can display your inbound phone number, and it's often difficult if you don't already have that individual in your contact list. Once the individual's unmasked, a hidden address can be checked against a known database or contact list. So what did I do to close this out? First, I forwarded the scam reveal information to Jane, and I later found out it happened to another neighbor too, who deleted it right away. I urged her to get some kind of virus detection like Malwarebytes or invite the Geek Squad out because she's a big fan of a Geek Squad. she's had them out to help her with other things, especially during her medical situation. And if any of you are interested and you get one of these, and you could try looking it up through spokeo.com or whocalledme.com, but both of those cost money. They have a free trial period of a week or so, but they do want your credit card number to upfront so they can start billing you. There are fraud and abuse reporting agencies. The Arizona Department of Economic Security, Federal Trade Commission, Better Business Bureau, and the FBI all have online complaint forms. They can be a little bit slow. It's a mysterious process, especially when no one is adversely affected. And as an option, you could block the individuals from future calls, or you could set up a contact info right on your cell phone contact list. I've started one called Scam Do Not Answer, and I put some of the known phone numbers of suspected scammers that I've encountered over the years. So the moral of the story is beware. There are more scammers than ever with quarantining and so forth. They got time on their hands, nothing better to do to try and trick you out of giving them money. And one last observation that the FTC had mentioned too is that we all think that seniors are the most vulnerable, but the most frequent scammed people nowadays, it's a growing concern, and that is the millennials. Just because they're a little bit more naive, they have less resources, they're apt to jump in and try and help, especially if they think they know somebody. And another growing with frequency scam audience is the religious community because of their professed avenue of trust, most likely to trust the individuals on the other end. So if you're associated with a church in any way, and I am, just urging them to be on hyper vigilant. So that concludes the formal portion. I'd like to turn this back to Roger. Stop my sharing.
Thank you, Bob. That was a lot of really good information and just a little bit scary. So be careful. Check, double check, try to communicate through another process and try to make sure that you're not being scammed. Now, back to Roger. Roger,
Who, me?
that would be you.
Okay,
And
there's
Roger's going to
a
give us
couple of, on YouTube, there's a couple of great TED Talks from a guy, I think in the UK, where he tells how he strings along these scammers. It's really humorous. So if you really have a morbid sense of humor, you might want to take some tips from that. Okay, we're going to talk about a feature that's been built into your Macs for years called Spotlight. So I am going to share my screen. So Spotlight does a lot of stuff, and we're going to share our screen. Okay, so the easiest way to get to Spotlight is by using a keyboard shortcut. Now, here's a little caveat. Apple, in their infinite wisdom, has placed two functions on this keyboard shortcut. If you hold down the Command key and tap the space bar very quickly, you get Spotlight. But if you pause when you're holding down the space bar, you see up in the upper corner, you may not be able to see it because your gallery view is up there, but it brings up Siri. So you have to be very quick when you are calling up Spotlight using the keyboard shortcut to get rid of Siri it either times out, or if you hit Command Spacebar again, it'll go away. So we're going to go back, hold down the Command key, tap the spacebar, and Spotlight comes up front and center. Now, Spotlight operates in the Mac operating system, and it also operates on the iPhone and iPad in iOS. And there's some differences. We're going to show those here in a minute. So you probably know that you can search for a document in Spotlight. So I'm just going to type in some letters here. And so you can see that we're getting lots of hits here. Now I can make this bigger. And the reason I'm doing that is so I can highlight the fact that Spotlight gives you the results in categories. So here it's making a guess is that this is the one you want. It's highlighted, so to open that, all I would have to do is hit the return key or double click on the highlighted text here, August TMUG Zoom. So then we go down here, and I know this is going to be hard to see. Let's see if we can zoom in on this here. No, won't let me to zoom in and Zoom. So the next category is documents. So this shows me some documents that have TMUG in it. The next category are contacts, which shows people that are listed in my contacts. So I made a note about TMUG. Then we have another category, which has some weird things we won't go into. Then we have a whole category for PDF. So remember that if you're looking for a document, Spotlight treats non-PDFs different than PDFs. So PDFs have their own category. It also looks at your calendar. So here are things in my events, and also looks at your reminders. And then it has things that Siri has found. It has a definition. So apparently there's no word in the dictionary that has a T in front of mug, but there is a word that is mug. And then we have some Siri suggested websites, mug.org, and a dictionary. And then Siri also can tell us about mug root beer. Isn't that wonderful? So speaking of contacts, if you wanted to search for a contact, you could put in Bob, for example. So we have quite a few Bobs here. And then the next category is here are any email messages from somebody named Bob. And then we have documents with Bob in them. And then we have somebody here who I have no idea who it is from Siri. So anyway, so you can search for people. Now, another way to use Spotlight, which I do constantly, is to launch an app. So if I wanted to launch my mail app, all I'd have to do is do my Command Spacebar to bring up Spotlight, type in mail, and because I use Spotlight to bring up mail on a regular basis, it figures that if I type an M in, then I want mail. Well, look, another Bob. So that's another thing that you can use. So in order to get Spotlight to work the way you want, you can set some things in system preferences. So we're going to search for Spotlight in Spotlight. How meta is that? So here we have Spotlight. So Spotlight lets you tailor exactly what it searches for. So I'm going to, okay, it won't let you enlarge the window. So it will look at applications, bookmarks and history, calculator, contacts, conversion, definition, documents, events and reminders, folders, fonts, images, mail and messages, movies, which is kind of interesting. Remember movies when we used to go to movies? Music, other PDF documents, presentations, that would be a keynote, and suggestions that it comes up with, spreadsheets, and system preferences. So you can uncheck any of these things. For example, if you didn't want to search for fonts, you could just uncheck fonts. Now, in this other tab up here at the top that says privacy, everybody see privacy? So this allows you to add things that you want to search, but more importantly, it lets you delete things that you don't want to search. Now, in rehearsal, my carbon copy clone drive was sitting here. So I could demonstrate how I could delete it and it wouldn't search, because when you search your clone along with your internal hard drive, of course, you're going to get 2 of everything. So that's no fun. So you want what's on your internal drive. So anyway, that's how you tell it what areas, they call it locations here, to search. So this is all in system preferences, and it's the little magnifying glass with the blue circle in the background. So that's how you do that. So let's go look at some of the other tricks that Spotlight can do. Again, I'm going to hit Command, tap the space bar, and it'll come up with your last search results. So if you're searching for something you didn't find it the first time, when you go back to Spotlight, that same search criteria will still be there. So what if you're talking to somebody in Europe and they're telling you something weighs 10 kilos? How many pounds is that? So you type in 10 and kilos. So if it's giving us Kelvin there, but if we do kilo, and if I did this all the time, it would probably get it on the K, but I don't do it all the time. So it tells us right away that 10 kilograms is equal to 22.05 pounds, 352.74 ounces, 10,000 grams, and the ever popular 0.011 short tons, not to mention 0.01 metric tons. So, you know, what's on our mind a lot these days? Why, it's the temperature. So when we're talking to our friends in Australia and we want to tell them how hot it is, so we put in 109 F for Fahrenheit, and we can tell our friends down under that it's 42.78 degrees centigrade here in the Sonoran Desert. So maybe you are working on a project that's measured in hours and you put in a lot of hours. Let's say you put in 2,300 hours. So we have to get rid of the F here and put an H in. So it figured out right away that those are hours because I did this before. So 2,300 hours is 95 days and 20 hours, 13.69 weeks, 0.26 years, 95.83 days, and a whopping 138,000 minutes. So it'll also do math calculations up here. So if we put in 12 and put in the asterisk, which of course is the multiplying sign. And where is the asterisk on my little keyboard here? I think it's here. And 12 times 20 is 240. So you can do simple math right here without, sometimes that's easier than pulling up the calculator. Well, I don't know about you guys, but you know, when we go to TMUG meetings, we always go and get something to eat. So I wonder where we could get something to eat around here. So that's not, oh, here we go. So it gives us a map. So I want to go to C's Kitchen. So there's the directions to C's Kitchen. Here's their hours. Oh my goodness. They closed at 8 o'clock. We'll have to find another place. Address, phone number, pictures from Yelp. They've got free Wi-Fi, parking, and they are taking Apple Pay. So as we mentioned before, you can also find out that there is nothing playing at the theater. There should be something that should come up with theaters here, but it didn't. Let's see here, if it's down here. Showtime, maybe it doesn't like the space. Let's look at that. Showtimes. Showtimes, yeah, normally it will display actual theaters near you. And again, it worked in rehearsal. So let's do this. Let me stop sharing my screen. And now I'm going to share my iPhone. So if I see if we can get this up here without a lot of reflection. Yeah, that looks pretty good. So we are going to open our iPhone. So when you're in your iPhone, to do Spotlight, you simply put your finger in the center of the screen and swipe down. So let's see how good this camera focuses. So what you're seeing there on the very top, the gray bar, is the search area. And then it tells you the apps that you have recently used. So you can go right back to an app that you want. So we would, let's try Showtimes here and see what happens. SHOWTIMES. Showtimes Tucson. So we put in Showtimes Tucson and it shows us Showtime sports card. Murphy's Law of
Showtimes may need to be 2 words.
Okay, we'll try that. So here's another trick that we've talked about before, but you may have forgotten. When you hold down the space bar, it turns into a trackpad. And now you can, well, that's interesting. I just typed in my email address. Because, okay, so you probably can't see this, so I'll describe it. You hold down the space bar, and I'm moving the cursor over to the W in Show, and I'm pressing the space bar, and it is giving me Showtimes, but it's bringing in another app called Eventful, which frankly I've never heard of. But anyway, that's the way it's supposed to work. Maybe they just turned it off because the theaters are closed. Who knows? So it does have some nice features in iOS. So you can search in the Mac by doing Command Spacebar. You can search in iOS by swiping down from the center. So that is things you may not have known about Spotlight. Any questions?
I have a question. I seem to have a hard time getting to search in iPad OS. What's the trick there?
It should still be swiping down from the center of the screen. You may have to be on the home screen for it to work. I can't remember.
I'll give it a try.
Bob, I think you have to use 2
Yeah, I
fingers
just
to
did
scroll
it.
down.
Yes, that
What was
works.
that, Kevin?
On screen.
You have to use 2 fingers when you scroll down on any of the screens on the iPad.
I used one.
Me too. I just use one. It works.
Yep,
Okay.
Liz has got it there.
Hey, Roger, also FYI, when you bring up Spotlight, you could hit Command Comma to go directly to the preps.
Oh, okay, good. Command comma.
Thank you, Roger.
pleasure.
Appreciate the work you've gone through for us. Before we let anybody out the door, I'd just like to remind you to please click on the feedback form survey in the chat window and take 2 minutes to give us a little feedback. We really appreciate that. It's important for us when planning our new meetings. Is there anybody here who does not see their chat window? Raise your hand. Jerry?
It'd be helpful to me if I had some of the initial words of the post. I have about 20 posts here, and they're really hard for me to read, but if I can have a few words of what the actual
Okay.
post says, I'll be able to find it.
Sure thing. It's from Bob Doms to everyone. It happened at 7:13 p.m. and it's here's the feedback form link for August.
Approximately the 10th one down from the top.
Yeah, that's about it. You don't see the times unless you are mousing over the chat window, or at least I don't.
Got it. Thanks.
Okay. Are there any other questions for Roger or any of our presenters before we close out the meeting? Mark, do you have something for us?
Question, it's a comment I thought I'd make since we were talking about scams. Just because I don't know if other people are getting hit in Tucson like I was yesterday. We got 4 phone calls a half hour apart, all from a different phone number, which was a nice computerized voice telling me my iCloud account had been hacked and it was now blocked, and I needed to hit number 2 to talk to support or call them back at their toll-free number, which wasn't a toll-free number. So I just thought I'd let everybody know that maybe Tucson area code was getting hit. And I think everybody on here probably knows better, but you might want to mention it to any other Apple-owned friends.
Was that one of those 1-900 numbers that you oftentimes call, Mark?
No, not that.
Melissa, thank you, Melissa. Melissa just copied the link to the feedback form and pasted it at the bottom of the chat window. So it's now second from the bottom, 8:12 p.m. Please take a moment to do that. And so everybody on your way home tonight, please drive safely. And
Hey, Bob, I had my hand up.
oh, you did. Go ahead, Gail. I didn't see that.
Okay. I use a mouse instead of the trackpad. And when I am using it, sometimes I push on it and I get an enlarged screen. How do I get it to go back to its normal state? I have tried everything I can think of.
The escape
What
key
type of
doesn't
mouse
do
is
it.
it?
Pardon me?
What type of mouse?
It's an Apple mouse.
2 fingers on top and pinch.
Okay, I will try that, Kevin. Thank you.
If you're in Safari and you pinch too much, it goes to your bookmarks or your tab screen, something like that. So be careful.
Okay.
Do you have a trackpad?
I have a trackpad and I hate it. I spent 4 years in physical therapy to get over using a trackpad at Apple. So thank you anyhow,
Okay.
Jerry.
There is one thing though that I find useful. If you hold down Control and scroll up and down on the trackpad with 2 fingers, you can blow the screen up. Very important for me. And so if my screen is too big, I think that maybe I need to do a Control with a 2-finger scroll down gesture. If you're in Safari, another thing that can happen is that you could have artificially or through a mistake bumped up the size of the text by doing a Command+, and Command 0 undoes undoes that. Command
Command
zero.
minus does it. The other problem I have, I got a new iPhone and it did not bring over one of my files, which was a yoga recording. I have it on my Mac. I don't have it on my iPhone. Anybody have suggestions on what is going on?
Where is it in your Mac? Is it in iTunes?
It's in music.
Email it to yourself.
Well, I can, but you know, I'm sorry, but I've had one heck of a time with Apple recently. I tried to update an old Mac so I could sell it to somebody in school. It erased all my addresses. And then it came, after waiting 3 hours, it came back and told me it could not install the system. I was missing parts. And then it did not go back to my original system. So I am not thrilled right this minute with my Apple products.
Sounds like you had a hell of a time, Gail.
Yes, I did.
So did you, the yoga recording, did you use the voice recorder to record that?
No, I recorded from a tape. It was years ago. I've had it for 20 years.
Oh,
And I never had a problem. Okay, thank you guys.
And it's a video, right?
No, it's not a video. I
It's an
don't
audio?
like video for yoga.
So is it an MP3 then type file?
I think so.
And you're using iTunes or iCloud to sync it?
I don't sync it.
Okay.
It's been on all my devices. I have no idea how it got synced.
Well, good
Okay.
luck.
Yeah, I wish I knew how to fix that.
Okay, well, thank you, everybody.
Amazing.
I
If you
think
had it, you could
we've,
drag it
if there
over.
are no more questions, I think we're at the end of the meeting. Kurt, you have your hand up, and Ridge, you have your hand up. Kurt, I saw you first, but you're muted.
Just waving goodbye.
Okay, I'm taking everybody's
Bye-bye.
waving as goodbye rather than I have a question.
To see and hear from some adults.
Michael Preet, I've
just wanted to mention
emailed
that
you
Kevin's-
about the groups.io. Check your email.
Oh, okay, cool.
Talk to you later.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Guys.
It looks
All
like
right.
it looks like the feedback form came up in the browser window. Bob, Doms, how do I get it filled in and come back to you?
Jerry, it should look just like that PDF I had on the screen earlier. There's little dots. You enter your rating, and down at the bottom it says submit. Don't forget to hit the submit when you're done.
Okay, I guess another comment that I could make is the print is kind of thin and feathery and tough for me to read. If you had put it in 14-point bold, I'd love it.
I'll look into it.
Thank you.
Good night, everybody. Have a
Bye.
safe trip home.
Night.
Come and see us again next month.
Good
Good
night.
night.
adios.
Adios.